All physical matter is logical and bound by laws. According to Danish writer Martinus, there are also laws and sets of rules for thinking and for physical matter. He lived from 1890 to 1981, and his spiritually scientific works are known today by many people in Denmark and in other countries. Martinus came from Vendsyssel in the north of Jutland. He never studied, but after an intense mental experience, he devoted the rest of his life to describing the natural laws of life. His cosmic, spiritually scientific analyses show that everything is very good. Knowledge of the mental and spiritual laws of nature will gradually make it possible for the terrestrial human being to master his psyche and mentality so that a paradise of peace and love can arise on earth. For the laws that control the physical and spiritual universe, Martinus used the term cosmology, the science of the law-bound and well-ordered universe, as opposed to chaos and chance. Martinus set down his analyses in more than 6,000 pages. Some of his books have been translated into many languages. He began writing when he was 30, after having had the intense mental experience that gave him the ability to make a perfectly logical description of the mystery of life. He said,
"The evolution of individual human beings will come to consist of their gradually liberating themselves from their political and religious dependence, and more coming to build up their psyche or consciousness on the basis of insight, knowledge and personal experience. For this, a new science is needed, a science of the spiritual reality of the universe, a new view of the world showing the interaction of individual details with the whole. There will, of course, be people who turn this spiritual science into a new religion, but that shows merely that they don't yet have the ability to understand it. I don't want, through my cosmic analyses, to become an authority in whom people should believe. The individual spiritual researcher who's interested in my cosmic analyses must carefully verify and study my work."
Martinus' own life began in modest surroundings. On the 100th anniversary of Martinus Thompson's birth, a museum was opened in Vendsyssel, the northern tip of Denmark's Jutland Peninsula. Martinus' childhood home has now been restored, rebuilt as it was in 1890, a modest house with a stable and living quarters in the same building. Martinus was born on the 11th of August 1890. The house was poor at that time and was in a lonely location. Today the town has drawn closer. Martinus' mother was unmarried. She was housekeeper to Lars Larsen, a landowner at Christianshed. Immediately after birth, the boy was handed over to his mother's brother and his wife in this house, which is called Moskildvad. Neither of his foster parents could read or write, but Martinus received a good upbringing. They looked after him like one of their own children. We don't know much about Martinus' childhood, because not much from that time has been preserved, but later, in 1963, Martinus himself described some episodes from his childhood here in Moskildvad. One Sunday he was out walking by a stream with his foster father.
And this ditch, it wasn't very wide, but I wasn't more than 5 or 6 at the time. I jumped over. I could jump backwards and forwards. Suddenly everything went black. Then I was hauled up. I was wearing some very good clothes with shiny buttons. I was so elegant, and then how I looked with peat slush all over me. Then I came home to my foster mother. She was very angry. I almost got a thrashing, but if I drowned, she would have been very unhappy. When flies gathered on the table around some leftovers, or when there was a drop of water they were about to drown in, I'd help them. "Kill them," she said. "Kill them? No, one can't do that." "Yes," she said, "they're pests, they should be killed." "No, one can't do that." Then I couldn't expect our Lord to save me if I'm about to drown. I'm a kind of our Lord for the drop of water, and I can save the fly, so I have to do it.
At the age of 7, Martinus began his schooling at Sindale Station School. Here he received only the most essential tuition. 3 hours twice a week in the summer, and a little more in the winter. It was 15 minutes' walk to the railway town, Sindal. The town grew up around the station building after the line between Jørgen and Frederikshavn was built. Martinus really liked going to school, especially the Bible history lessons. The old stories appealed to his sensitive mind. But he could not accept all Christian teachings.
And then he explained about the Bible. He said it was terrible if a couple had a baby that died before it was baptized. It would go straight to hell, he said. I thought that was terrible. It couldn't be true. Then he talked about illegitimate children, that there were always a curse on them. They were never good at anything. And I thought that couldn't be true. Our Lord's not angry with me. I can't help being born legitimately or illegitimately. It would be terrible if I'd be cursed because I was born to unmarried parents.
Martinus was delicate from birth. All the same, he wanted to be apprenticed to a blacksmith. But the work proved too hard for him, so after a month he got a job on a farm. He worked there until the end of the summer, and from then on until he was 18 he worked as a cowherd on various farms in the area, the last of which belonged to the parish officer in Sindale, where he stayed 2 years.
It was a little private dairy. It looked very nice, but nothing worked, neither a regulator nor anything else, and the boiler was far too small, so a weight was put on the safety valve of the steam boiler, and the machine's regulator didn't work. When a drive belt broke off, it went out of control, so one had to rush to close off the steam. One day, the factory inspector came. But we were finished by then, and the machine stood still. He couldn't see that there was no regulator. There was a regulator, but it was only decoration. And during the day, when we switched the machine on, we had to put a weight on the safety valve in order to get the pressure up. In the steam boiler, the pressure was so high that the valve could fly into the air at any moment. Oh, it was terrible. And I arrived the evening before I was to become a sailor. I'd rented a hotel room and arranged everything, and then I went out and walked along Strøget. The town hall bells still remind me of that day. Oh, I thought, what life, what shops and people. I thought it was a great adventure. I'd never seen a real market town before.
Martinus went into the navy in spite of the fact that he was an avowed pacifist. He served on one of the new torpedo boats and enjoyed life at sea. Because of his training as a dairyman, he was made stoker, but he was soon given the post of orderly to the chief engineer. It wasn't possible at that time to be a conscientious objector, but during most of Martinus' time as a sailor, he was not under Navy command. He never bore arms. Shortly afterwards, the First World War broke out. Yet in 1913, many, including prominent politicians, thought that people had now become too highly developed to go to war. After military service, Martinus had various kinds of work, as a watchman, as a postman, and for some years as an office clerk at Enigheden's dairy. Gradually something began brewing deep in his mind, but he did not understand what it was. To his surprise and wonder, he felt that the desire his friends had to get married and create a home did not exist for him. Martinus would have liked to become a missionary, but he realized that it wasn't possible. As he himself said, "I don't believe in eternal hell." His concept of God differed too much from the dogmatic Christian concept. Then he met Lars Nibelvang, a man very interested in theosophy and philosophy. Their meeting led indirectly to Martinus in March 1921, having the profound spiritual experience that totally changed his life, the experience that enabled him to write his life's work on Martinus Cosmology, a work that has since made his name known to people in a number of countries.
Then one day I visited this man. He wasn't a follower of any theosophical or anthroposophical society, but he'd read world philosophy. I listened to him for a long time, and he lent me a book. I had a tremendous longing for more knowledge. I began reading the book and came to a place where it said that one could meditate. One could sit comfortably in a chair and cover one's eyes so that one could concentrate better. Suddenly, I saw a statue. It was Thorvaldsen's statue of Christ standing, saying, "Come unto me." Everything disappeared. My organism, the room, the house, everything. I sat in nothing other than golden rays, and I felt a tremendous pressure on my consciousness. My experiencing such a thing wouldn't have meant very much if I hadn't afterwards discovered that when I thought about anything, some higher problem or other, the solution came to me as something living.
In the years following this profound mental experience, Martinus began writing. He felt he had an ocean of knowledge on which to draw. Every time he met a question or a problem, the answer came to him immediately. For Martinus, what he wrote was old knowledge, and gradually he realized that this knowledge didn't have any limits. But it was difficult for him, because he wasn't accustomed to expressing himself, and now he had to write about complicated matters and make profound analyses. A long time passed before Martinus began to write in earnest. In fact, he began by drawing. He realized that it was necessary to give his thoughts visible expression. He therefore drew a long series of symbolic illustrations showing the entire world picture, eternity and infinity. Martinus realized that modern, intelligent man would find it a great advantage to have the support of symbols and other illustrations. He therefore translated in this way his spiritually scientific truths, making them visible and accessible. In 1930, Martinus gave his first public lecture to an audience of more than 200. It was at 11 Forhåbningsholms Allé in Copenhagen. He was nervous and shy when he stepped up onto the platform, but after some minutes he put his text aside and held the audience's attention for almost 2 hours. Soon more people became interested in Martinus' thoughts. One of them, Bernard Løe, was introduced to Martinus in 1928. An ex-manufacturer, he was now the leader of the Anthroposophical Society. Løe became one of Martinus' most faithful and helpful friends in these rather difficult years. Martinus soon gained more experience in expressing himself and gradually formulated the cosmic principles and laws in clear, graphic symbols. In 1928, he began writing Livets Bog, the Book of Life. The first volume appeared in 1932. Bernard Løe financed its publication. Its 345 pages and 8 coloured symbols constitute merely the introduction to the main work. Martinus received so many letters requiring answers that one day Bernard Løe suggested that he should have an assistant. A young man called Erik Gerner Larsen became Martinus' first assistant. He quickly became so interested in Martinus Cosmology that he soon took part in establishing study circles all over Denmark. In 1933, the first issue of the magazine Cosmos came out. Today it's published in 5 languages.
The Martinus Center
has developed into an educational institution where there are not only lectures in the summer, but also courses in the spring and autumn. The center's history goes back to 1934. At that time, Martinus and his co-workers had an institute in Copenhagen where one could teach in the winter, but they lacked a place where they could meet in the summer. One day, one of Martinus's friends came with a small advertisement for an area of land in Klint near Nykøbing in Sjælland. That's about 60 miles northwest of Copenhagen. It was for sale at less than a penny per square foot. They went up to see it on Constitution Day in 1934 and agreed that this was the place to establish a center.
Grundlovsdag i 1934, og man blev enige om, at det var stedet, hvor man skulle oprette et center. Så allerede i løbet af vinteren og foråret byggede man.
So during the following winter and spring, 7 summer houses were built. There wasn't any actual teaching. People sat in front of and inside the houses and discussed cosmic analyses. Gerner Larsen and Martinus gave talks about them. But things developed, creating a need for a lecture hall. So in 1937, the first small lecture hall was built to accommodate 80 people.
Plads til 80-20 mennesker. Og det har jo udviklet sig efterhånden, sådan at man måtte bygge en større foredragssal.
Gradually, things developed further, making it necessary to build a larger lecture hall. That was at the end of the 40s, and at the beginning of the 60s, the lecture hall we have today was built.
Dette center, et samlingssted, hvor man kunne undervise.
So in the form of this center, Martinus had a meeting place for teaching, but he thought that one should also have a standard. And this standard was a flag designed by Martinus himself. It came to consist of the colors of the rainbow, symbolizing the basic energies, the thought energies from which the entire universe is built up. In the middle of the flag, he drew the symbol of a living being to show that a living being exists behind the creation of the universe. In reality, the symbol came to symbolize the entire universe. It was Martinus's idea that it should fly not only over Clint, but that it should fly all over the places and centers around the world where Martinus's cosmic analyses are taught.
Rundt omkring i verden, hvor der ville blive undervist i Martinus' kosmiske analyser.
One could call Martinus' cosmology a theory of evolution, since the term evolution is a thread running through his entire thought world. But it is more than a known biological theory of evolution. For most people it is a theory, but for Martinus it was a personally experienced reality. It was not Martinus' wish to create a new religion. He created a basis for development and research for those who might want it. Martinus described this symbol as his main symbol. For Martinus, all life is eternal. It has always existed, and nothing other than life exists. Death is merely an imagined contrast to life. The symbol shows, among many other things, the cycle of evolution in which all life, all living beings, make their eternal passage through continuously higher zones of evolution. From our life on Earth, we are familiar with 3 zones of evolution: the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, and the animal kingdom. Martinus stresses that evolution is an eternal process taking us towards continuously higher forms of life. Everything is living, all life is eternal, and all living beings develop from life to life to ever more perfect states. The triune figures each symbolize a living being. The areas increase in size, signifying the being's evolution from less perfect to ever more perfect forms of existence.
If one wants to understand these thoughts, it's necessary to be able to take in immense epochs of time, and this can be rather difficult. But all the same, when, with the help of the known sciences, we look at evolution on Earth, we begin to sense the logical reality of this new world picture. The Earth came into existence billions of years ago as a glowing ball of fire. Gradually, as it cooled down, some primitive forms of plant life appeared on this sphere of mineral matter. The plants evolved through millions of years to still more advanced forms. And at a certain point in time, the animal forms of life entered the Earth's arena. The killing principle arose. In the animal world, it's necessary to kill and to be killed. But the animal forms of life also evolved towards continuously higher forms of life. Man is thus the temporary result of evolution. But is it logical that evolution should stop here? Is it unthinkable to imagine it continuing? Martinus regards the terrestrial human being as part of the animal kingdom. The human being finds himself situated in the area of the killing principle. But there are still many obstacles that have to be overcome before we reach a world where the killing principle ceases, a world Martinus calls the real human kingdom, where violence and killing are no longer possible.
As a comfort to those that suffer, remember that in just that second, where darkness reaches its turning point, sorrow reaches its terminus, and life's oldest commandment is renewed, let there be light.
When the living being has passed through the physical planes of existence, the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, and the real human kingdom, it continues through spiritual worlds, which Martinus has termed the kingdom of wisdom and the divine world. Here evolution reaches a temporary climax, whereupon a new cycle begins. Such a cycle of evolution embraces immeasurable epochs of time. The new cycle is not a repetition of the previous one, but, in accordance with the law of hunger and satiation, the being becomes satiated by life in the spiritual world, returns to the physical world, and once more involves itself in matter. The living being begins a new journey through the mineral, plant, and animal kingdom, but this time in a higher spiral of evolution. Life goes on eternally through the 6 kingdoms, not in a circle, but in ever greater spirals. This means that we are, at any given point in time, at the very highest stage in our evolution. Evolution always goes forwards, even if, from a local perspective, life can sometimes seem depressing. Martinus tells us that evolution is the accumulation of experience. Every time we experience something, we evolve. The experiences we gather lead us from life to life with the help of spiritual talent kernels. Unhappiness is explained not as something evil. A painful experience is in reality an unpleasant good thing and is due to ignorance. One experiences no more unpleasantness than is absolutely necessary. When we no longer have the heart to inflict evil on others, we ourselves are protected. The figure with the triangle shows the living being, and the series of orange areas symbolizes the series of lives on the physical plane. The evil and the good we do are waves of energy we send out, and these waves of energy return sooner or later to us, either in this life or in a future one. At the top we see waves of energy, or fate waves, showing the karmic connection between several lives. These fate waves form an apparently unending pattern. Happily, they are not endless. The golden ocean of flames shows the growing faculty for humaneness. Again we see a series of physical lives, and how the waves of energy are sent out and received. This humaneness causes a gradually increasing protection against the unpleasant karmic formations of the past.
Everyone today understands the regularity of the universe, a clockwork, precise and immense. At the same time, we don't hide the fact that man is the only cog moving quite by chance. And when people are conscious of only the one life, the life that they're now living, they don't have much of an overview of the immense panorama. But they must learn to understand that they're eternal, that the life they're now living is not the beginning. If it were the beginning, there'd be no justice at all in the world. Everything would be completely destructive. The only ideal would be that people should excel at killing and murdering as much as possible, and it seems as if people are eagerly striving towards it. But this is not now the case. If we look at mankind today, we can see that it's quite different from what it was 1,000 years ago.
The principle of reincarnation is described very clearly by Martinus. It means a steady and progressive development from life to life, and is an inevitable and natural part of the great cosmic whole. We must accept the consequences of all our actions. We ourselves are ultimately the cause of all the happiness and joy, suffering and sorrow we encounter in life.
This evolution can be further confirmed through the fact that this terrible suffering, to which man's animal tendencies give rise, creates a new faculty in people, namely the humane faculty. Intelligence, which has evolved in the human being, forming the basis for technological development, has nothing to do with feeling. Man doesn't learn to feel because he's very intelligent. On the contrary, as long as he has animal tendencies, he uses this intelligence in order to be superior to others, in order to assert himself and to get power and possessions and to oppress others. For this reason, another faculty is needed. This faculty can't grow in the same way as intelligence does. It can be developed only through the experiences people gather from suffering, from illness, from all the evil they've inflicted on their neighbors.
So no one is a martyr, no one suffers innocently, and we become liberated from our sufferings only when we no longer have the heart to hurt others. This law of life can seem hard. It is, however, an expression of the very highest kind of love. Like everything else in life, suffering has a purpose and is designed to promote our development. For Martinus, no evil in the absolute sense exists. In reality, everything is ultimately very good. What we call evil, he terms the unpleasant good. Karma is not a punishment, but life's own education. When we've learned our lessons in the school of life, our humaneness will be so developed that we will no longer have the heart to hurt another being. Then we'll be liberated from suffering. Then we'll have cosmic protection. When we've come so far, we'll be immune to the returning effects of previous evil actions, an explanation of the terms forgiveness and the forgiveness of sins. Martinus calls these principles laws of nature. They are just as unshakable as the law of gravity. The evolution of man doesn't progress through wealth, position and influence, only through the development of tolerance, humaneness and neighbourly love.
The universe is built up of 6 basic energies. All 6 energies are always present in varying combinations on the 6 different planes of existence. Evolution progresses continuously through the mineral kingdom, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, the real human kingdom, and so on through the spiritual worlds. If we look at the plant kingdom, for example, we see that all 6 energies have a greater or lesser influence. 2 of the energies are increasing, 2 are decreasing, and 1, namely intelligence, is latent. The energy of instinct reaches its peak here and is the dominating factor of life in the plant world. In the plants, the vital functions are controlled instinctively or automatically. The plants have absolutely no ability to react intelligently, but they can vaguely sense pleasantness and unpleasantness. They turn towards light and warmth, making full use of any given situation. In the animal kingdom, the energy of gravity reaches its peak. This term is not quite the same as the force of gravity or the attraction of masses. In Martinus's terminology, the energy of gravity is the factor fundamental to everything of a physical nature. It promotes the principle of killing. In the animal world, killing is a vital necessity, and it is still very much so in the world of man. But the principle of killing is reaching its peak now, after which it will begin to decline. In the epoch of evolution that Martinus calls the real human kingdom, the energy of feeling dominates, and humaneness and neighbourly love rule the world. The terrestrial human being is not yet a completely evolved human being, but it is in the process of becoming so. In his books, Martinus writes about the evolution of the earth and about the future world state. Suffering and pain pave the road of experience, leading to sympathy, humaneness, and universal love, to the perfect human being and a paradise of peace on earth. Love is the keynote of the universe.
Martinus describes the present terrestrial human being as a transitional being between the animal and the human being, a sphinx, as was symbolized by the ancient Egyptians, and which can be seen on Martinus' own tapestry. Martinus travelled widely, here to Egypt and Palestine in 1961. He often received invitations to give lectures and therefore visited distant places. Martinus visited Iceland 7 times. He loved the journeys and the Icelandic people, probably because of their warm kindness and great tolerance.
Jeg husker det godt, og vil aldrig glemme det, når jeg så Martinus, og talte med ham, lærte
I
ham
remember well and will never forget meeting Martinus, talking to him and getting to know him a little. He was like Jesus, more like him than any other person I've met in my entire life. It was quite remarkable. He didn't need to refer to books. No, it was as if he had known him, and more than that, I think it was as if he'd lived himself into the personality that Jesus was. And when he spoke, it was as if Jesus himself spoke. It was so remarkable, I'll never ever forget it.
Det syntes jeg så mærkværdigt, at det glemmer jeg aldrig.
The Martinus Institute is in Frederiksberg, Copenhagen. It houses a lecture hall and administrative offices, and the magazine Cosmos is published here. On the first floor we find Martinus' flat as it was when he left this physical world. It will later be made into a museum. The Institute takes care of the preservation of Martinus' works, unchanged as he left them. The Institute supplies information about these works and makes them accessible to those interested who would like to study and research Martinus cosmology. The Institute has no members, and there's no society one can be a member of. Martinus cosmology is freely available to everyone. There's of course a certain spiritual fellowship between those who are interested, but no association to spread the cosmology. Martinus lived here in Mariendalsvej for 38 years, not in obscurity, for many people came here to listen to him talking about his cosmology. That he isn't particularly well known in Denmark is because he avoided all forms of public attention to his person. Martinus was a very tolerant man. He thoroughly realized that no two people are alike, and that in the long run one can't lay down a common pattern of life for people on different evolutionary steps. It was natural for him to be a vegetarian. He neither smoked nor drank alcohol, and his attitude to the world around him was entirely pacifist. He makes no judgments, and no particular way of living is dictated. Martinus shows the consequences of various ways of thinking and acting, and from that one can choose for oneself how one will live one's life. Evolution guides us so that we become independent thinkers who can form an opinion about all the problems of life independently of authorities, dogmas, orders, and the like. There are no lost souls, and we ourselves choose the way we want to go in order to progress in evolution. From a local perspective, some ways can seem more difficult than others, but we all reach our goal. On the 8th of March 1981, Martinus left the physical world. His funeral took place on the 29th of March in the Tivoli Concert Hall. The Michele Petri Trio and actress Ellen Malbert took part. She read the postscript with which Martinus ended his main work.
Dear Father, I feel your wonderful presence when I direct my gaze out into the immense depth of space, and you, through the fire of thousands of stars, unfold for me how you've caressed our planet with their rays in the past and in the present, and that the stars shining upon us today, in our little world, are the same as have shone upon the emergence, the flowering and the downfall of history's many cultures, great and small. From the darkness of night you've blazed your way into the lonely astronomer's receptive spirit, and there revealed the first elementary concepts of your eternal wisdom. You allowed him to vaguely sense your great depths, your immense space. You taught him that his own world was a star in space, moving in mighty orbits in accordance with eternal laws. You allowed him to analyze the rays of the sun and the light from distant worlds, from sparkling suns of such profusion and over such horizons that the entire panorama became shining mists, losing themselves outside the bounds of time and space, leaving behind in him the first weak abilities to contemplate your gigantic thoughts. You've let me see that not one single being is let down or can fail in your divine plan. Your guiding hand is upon every single being, every single son of God. You're with him in darkness. You're with him in his epochs of suffering, even if he neither suspects nor understands your presence. You're the fire in his heart, causing him to arise victoriously from the darkness and coldness of primitivity, in order to let him shine and sparkle with your wisdom and love over everything and everyone. In this way you've guided all those beings that today populate your highest regions of light through the dark spheres of doomsday and Armageddon. And in this way you're in the process of guiding all human beings out of the earth's spheres of darkness and suffering into the streaming rays of your regions of light.